Thank you. I welcome Mr. Andrew Shearer, Director General, and other officers of the Office of National Intelligence. Mr. Shearer, do you have an opening statement for us this evening?
Yes, just a brief one, Chair, if that's okay.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. The world has kept changing apace since I last appeared before the committee, so I'd just like to briefly update the committee on some of those developments where they bear most significantly on Australia's interest. Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, with horrific loss of life on both sides, but particularly Russia's. What's at stake now in the conflict is whether US-led diplomatic efforts can fashion an outcome that secures Ukraine, stabilises the European security order and deters future aggression, not only in Europe but also in the Indo-Pacific. This will be a tall order with significant implications for Australia. The US administration is also seeking to catalyse peace in the Middle East. Obviously a laudable goal, but one fraught with difficulties. It's clear President Trump is determined to shake the parties out of their entrenched positions. That will be complex and will entail new risks. But it's worth recalling that the first Trump administration had some success in the region, fashioning the important Abraham Accords between Israel and a number of Arab neighbours. Iran's position as regional spoiler and destabiliser, chiefly through its proxies, has been severely weakened by Israeli operations. It is clear the Trump administration has little or no tolerance for Tehran's nuclear weapons program. My colleague, the Director General of Security, has addressed the domestic security outlook comprehensively in his recent annual threat assessment, so I will not go into the onshore implications of these conflicts now. Suffice to say, though, that individually and collectively, the axis of Russia, Iran, North Korea and China continue to pose significant cyber, espionage, military and interference threats to the interests, security and prosperity of Australia and of our allies and partners. On the latter score, I can assure the committee that ONI is working closely with our partners in the national intelligence community and with the Australian Electoral Commission through the Election Integrity Assurance Task Force to ensure the integrity of the forthcoming federal election at a time of elevated foreign interference risk. Meanwhile, Australia's immediate strategic environment continues to deteriorate. The national intelligence community has been providing 24/7 support to government and to the Australian Defence Force's robust response to the passage of a Chinese People's Liberation Army naval task group through waters proximate to Australia. The Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister have made clear publicly that the vessels are operating in accordance with international law, albeit short of the best practice the ADF consistently employs in such circumstances. Our preliminary view is that the deployment demonstrates China's growing capability to project military power into our immediate region, now matched by an increasing intent to do so. The largest and least transparent military build-up since the Second World War will mean that the PLA will be able to operate at greater distances from mainland China, in greater numbers, including into Australia's immediate seas and skies. This is the furthest south a PLAN task group has operated, and at least some of its activities seem designed to be provocative. We judge Beijing intends to normalise this sort of presence, shape the responses of those in the region, and observe and learn from our reactions. In the South Pacific, important government initiatives have shored up our influence and position in an increasingly competitive strategic environment. PICS signed up to a regional policing agreement at last year's Pacific Island Forum Summit, then agreed to October's Pacific Defence Ministers meeting to establish a regional response group based in Brisbane with a focus on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. And in December, Australia landed the NRL deal with PNG, an agreement to support Solomon Islands policing and also the Nauru-Australia Treaty. But the Cook Islands move to sign a comprehensive strategic partnership with China and recent tensions between Kiribati and New Zealand highlight the continuing challenges we face in this strategically critical region for Australia. And we assess that China will continue to step up its own efforts in the region this year. Finally, having recently met my new US intelligence counterparts, I'm pleased to inform the committee that I'm heartened by their commitment to working closely with us and continuing to build our vital intelligence partnership. I've also come away from other recent meetings with counterparts, whether from the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, India, Southeast Asia or Europe, likewise reassured that our intelligence partnerships are in good shape to navigate this complex and difficult period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Shearer. We'll now turn to questions. Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Mr Chair. That was a very sober assessment, so thank you, and a very worrying one. Just in relation to the Chinese ships and the exercise that's taking place at the moment, and you touched upon this in your opening statement. What did China, in your view, what did China want to achieve by this particular exercise?
Well, Senator, as I said in my statement, the exercise is consistent with a pattern of Chinese naval deployments further from China. They are doing that, in our view, because that's been part of their strategy for a considerable length of time. But now what we see is Chinese military capabilities coming online at greater scale and giving them the capabilities to project power further to match that intent to project Chinese power further.
So there's no, going back to your opening statement, I think you said this is the further south they may have been. Is there any precedent for exercises like this elsewhere in the world?
Exercises of this type are common, Senator. The Chinese People Liberations Army Navy has been conducting them, as I've said, further from mainland China in a number of different geographic areas, and other navies routinely conduct such deployments in international waters also.
So there'd be no, is there a parallel to be drawn between the operations of the PLAN and our own activities in the South China Sea?
Only, I think, Senator, in that, as I said, navies customarily operate within the confines of international law in international waters and operate in international skies.
The Defence Minister in New Zealand has said that the flotilla of Chinese warships that were conducting the drills off Australia were packing up, she says, extremely capable weapons with a range of up to 1,000 kilometres. Is that something that you would agree with in terms of the hardware that was on these particular vessels?
Senator, I won't comment in detail here on the capabilities, but I would say that, for example, the presence of a guided missile cruiser does demonstrate a fairly formidable amount of military power.
Do you have any other questions here? Richard, do you have any questions here just in relation to the PLAN or anything like that? I might go on to just something slightly else. In relation to Ukraine, today being the 3-year anniversary, and you also touched upon this in your opening statement, what should Australia be worried about in relation to the access of those 4 countries that you mentioned in relation to their own activities, but how it relates to Ukraine? Is there something that you can say in this open forum that Australia should be aware of?
Well, Senator, I would say that the activities of this axis globally, including in Europe and with regard to Ukraine, are of increasing concern to us and many other agencies. In the case of Ukraine, the provision of North Korean weapons, including artillery, ammunition in vast quantities, and also ballistic missiles, has helped to keep Putin in the war against Ukraine. And of course, more recently, we've seen the provision of North Korean troops to fight alongside the Russians in that war. Both of these are materially assisting Russia's war effort. We've also seen Iran actively providing drones and other equipment to Russia, and as I've said before publicly, Chinese diplomatic, economic and dual-use support for Russia has also helped prolong Putin's illegal war.
You mentioned you met with your counterparts recently. Do you believe that the statements or actions of President Trump may impact our approach to Ukraine, or could impact our approach to Ukraine?
Senator, I won't get into the detail, obviously, of those conversations. My impression from those introductory meetings is that the Trump administration will take a firm and forthright position on an array of threats that they perceive to be directed at the United States. But I won't get into commentary on that.
I think that's all that I've got in relation to this, those 2 particular issues. So I'm happy to finish my questioning there, Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator McGrath. I believe that's all the questions you will have this evening. Thank you very much for your role that you play in national intelligence and the support and protection of our nation.
I've got a lot of personal annotations, but I will provide it to the Secretary.
Thank you. Cheers.
Clean form. Thanks, Senator. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll go on to the ANAO if they're around. I will now resume with the Australian National Audit Office. Are you happy to keep doing that until... Yes, sorry.
Chair,
Minister.
I understand that Minister Wong is returning now, so
Okay.
I wonder if you might, I'm not sure if that in any way impacts the program, but I wonder if we might just suspend briefly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. We will suspend briefly, but on that basis... Okay, Senator Wong is available, so we will go back to PM&C, and then we'll move on to ANAO and the Australia Day Council.
That's okay.
I will suspend until Senator Wong is back at the table. Excellent.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all right.